Okay, sounds good. So thanks everyone for joining us this morning. We're excited to be hosting the final Wellness Series webinar of 2020, sponsored by Honsberger Physio. For those of you who are not familiar with Honsberger Physio, Honsberger is all about helping you build a better you. Whether you have a new injury, want to take your game to the next level, or are just finding it harder to move like you used to, they are committed to helping you feel better, live better, perform better, and work better. They believe that personal empowerment is key to living a healthy life. Honsberger Physio has locations in Aurora, Markham, Stouffville, and Burlington. Today, we have Robin Honsberger, Head of Business Development and Operations, moderating our webinar. Robin has a passion for problem solving and supporting the success of the team. One of Robin's biggest strengths is her ability to network and build relationships. Her passion for innovation and partnering for mutual success has allowed for the expansion of Honsberger Physio unique service offerings. I will now turn it back over to you, Robin.
Thanks, Sandra. I appreciate the introduction, and I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody on the call today. We're very excited to present a Healthy Eating for the Seasons webinar in partnership with Erin. She's worked very hard on the content, and I think you're all really going to enjoy it this afternoon. So really the purpose of today is to talk about holiday wellness, and it all starts with food. And you're going to learn some great insights from Erin throughout the remainder of this presentation. So really, as Sandra mentioned, all of these wellness series are about finding your better moment. And today, from everything that Erin and I have talked about, it's really about enjoying your holiday foods guilt-free. So without further ado, I am going to give you a warm introduction and welcome to Erin. Erin is a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator with Out of the Woods Wellness Center here in Aurora. Erin obtained her BSc in human nutrition from St. FX University in 2006, diabetic internship also from St. FX University in 2007, and became a certified diabetes educator in 2009. Erin is also a certified craving change facilitator. Erin has over 13 years of experience working with people to help them achieve their nutritional goals. Erin has a breadth of expertise, including diabetes management, heart healthy eating, weight management, intuitive eating, digestive health, prenatal and postnatal nutrition. I'm going to screw this one up, Erin, so you might have to interrupt me on this one. Nutrigenomics and the general nutrition. Erin is passionate about working with her clients to make dietary changes that fit with their current lifestyle. So without further ado, Erin, I am going to pass it over to you. Just a few housekeeping items for everybody on the call today. If there's any questions at any point, there is a chat function through Zoom that you're more than welcome to use. Alternatively, you can unmute yourself and ask Erin a question directly, whatever you prefer and whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, thanks so much, and we're excited for a great session today.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks for hosting both the Chambers and Honsberger's Physio. This is a wonderful opportunity to get to talk with the community. It is nutrigenomics, so you got that right, Robin. Just housekeeping on my part, I have a teething infant in the background, so if you hear some crying, there is another parent with her, so don't worry. So today's objectives, really, I want to talk to you about what is intuitive eating, the 10 principles of intuitive eating, and some really easy ways to implement intuitive eating, especially over the holidays. And I really am hoping to have enough time to have some good chat, some question and answer. So my goal is to really stay timely, and Robin's going to interrupt me if I'm going over on time. So that's great. So I'll get you to go to the next slide. So intuitive eating this is probably not your typical holiday eating talk. Intuitive eating is really a framework that was created in 95 by a couple of dietitians in the States, Evelyn Tremblay and Elise Reich. And it encompasses both your physical and mental health. So we really want to focus on trusting our bodies and listening to what our bodies need, and having our nutrition be really gentle guidelines, not restrictive and not rule-based. So intuitive eating has 10 principles, and it's aligned with the healthy eating at every size. If you've heard of the HAZE strategy before, they really do work well together. So the principles work in two key ways: to cultivate attunement with our body and to remove barriers to your attunement. So I think the first thing to figure out is, what the heck is attunement? So attunement is really to make aware or responsive. So when we think about our body, a really easy one to think of is our bladder. So when our bladder is full, we get this sensation and we respond appropriately to empty it. When we think about our eating, a lot of times we don't have that attunement with our body. We either ignore hunger, or we tell ourselves, oh, let's do some things to distract ourselves. Or maybe we've been on so many diets that we actually can't feel the correct hunger and satiety sensations. So the principles will work to help us to become more attuned with our body. And so how can intuitive eating actually benefit your health? So an intuitive eater has a lot of different attributes, but these are some things that may improve or decrease whenever you start working on intuitive eating. You may find your BMI or your weight may become more stable. Triglycerides and HDL, those are both types of cholesterol that we have in our body. So it can decrease our triglycerides and increase our HDL, that's our good cholesterol. We see less disordered eating, we see improved self-esteem and body acceptance. We have less of this idolization of thinness. We can become more aware of our own body cues, increase optimism, more variety of foods, and look at that at the bottom, increase well-being. Who doesn't want that, right? So the 10 principles that we're going to go over today, this was a real challenge for me, deciding how to get through all of these 10 or just specifically work on a couple. So what I'd like to do is give you a really brief introduction into all 10 of these principles. And if there are specific principles that you want to dive a little bit deeper into, we can explore that in the Q&A, or you can interrupt me and we can chat a bit more if it's a really hot topic. So our first principle is to reject the diet mentality. So no more diets, not restrictive eating, not this big set of rules. What we're really looking at is that diets, they don't work. They can really affect our biology. If you've been on a lot of yo-yoing diets, you may find that you gain weight and then some. You may find that your metabolism changes a little bit. It definitely affects our mind. So our relationship with food, anxiety around food, really changes. Weight gain often happens. So when we look at the most consistent predictor of weight gain, it's actually dieting. And Evelyn Tremblay in her book really, I've got a quote, I'm just going to read it to you, is there's not a single long-term study that shows weight loss dieting is sustainable. Study after study shows us that dieting and food restriction for the purpose of weight loss leads to more weight gain. Yes, weight gain, and worse, the focus and preoccupation of weight, resulting in body dissatisfaction, weight stigma, and negative impacts on our health. So we're really getting that disconnect from our mind and body. We're losing that attunement. So this is a really important piece of the principles and why it's number one on there. So we really want to forget about diet culture and focus on health. Honoring your hunger. So hunger is normal, and when we are hungry, we should eat. Seems pretty obvious, but how many times have you read a diet or heard something in the media that you're supposed to follow this diet and ignore those hunger signs because it's either not time to eat, or you're supposed to eat at a certain time of the day, or if you're not full, you have to stop because you've used up all of your allotment for that day. So there's this really great image there from a dietitian, and it's the Alyssa Rumsey, sorry, it's a deprivation binge pendulum. And really, when we restrict and deprive, that's when we swing the opposite way eventually and binge and overeat. So telling myself, I can't eat until noon today, and then when I finally eat at noon, I end up eating 2 meals worth of food. So if I would have just had breakfast and lunch, it probably would have been happier and consumed the same amount of food. So really looking at that swinging. So another thing is to learn about what is hunger. Sometimes when we ask people, well, what does hunger feel like? People think, oh, it's, you know, this gnawing pain in my stomach. It's a really bad headache. I get dizzy. That's past the point of hunger. We really want to start to listen to those gentle hunger cues and eat before we get to that animalistic hunger or hangry, as some of us end up getting. And that will probably help you to not swing to that other end of the pendulum. The third piece, make peace with food. This is a really hard one for most people who are learning about intuitive eating to trust. So food is not moralistic. There's no good foods or bad foods. They're not foods that are, you know, criminals and foods that are saints. They're all just food. So when we think about apples and apple pie, they are nutritionally very different, but emotionally they're exactly the same. Foods should not make you feel bad for eating certain ones or feel like you're a better person because you've eaten a different one. Food is just food. Habituation is something else that is something to be aware of when you're looking at making peace with food. And I'll use the example so you can understand what I mean of falling in love. So the first time you fall in love and you tell your partner, oh my gosh, I love you, it's very exciting. And you've got all this energy and it's overwhelming and the feeling is intense. But you know, 5 years, 10 years into that relation, saying I love you still feels really nice, but it's not as exciting as that first time it happened. If you make peace with food, give yourself permission to eat whatever foods, then you don't have that urgency to consume all of it all at once. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have that food again, or I better eat all of this because I'm starting this new restrictive diet tomorrow. It's just food, and you may be able to actually consume in a more or a less urgent state so that it feels more comfortable when you eat. So that making peace with food is very important. So that whole idea of if I let myself eat whatever I want, I'll never stop. But again, if you give yourself that permission, it'll not be so exciting and overwhelming. You can have it again later.
Hey, Erin, I have a question. So about making peace with food, and let's say we know that we're going to indulge. I've heard a lot about people using plate sizes as a way to moderate some of those more indulgent foods. Would you use this as a good strategy to help make peace with food, or would you not consider that a helpful strategy?
I would see that as another rule.
Okay, perfect.
So if the rule is I can only have this size of a plate, then it's not serving you.
Gotcha.
If the rule is when I'm finished of that plate, I need to check in and see if I'm actually full, then that does serve you. So it just depends on your personality and if that can actually work for you.
Great. I appreciate that bit of insight. I think that's the main one that came up right now.
And that actually brings us perfectly into this next one. So challenging the food police. You'll see at the bottom there, it says, does this rule serve you? So the food police is this set of rules that either ourselves or diet culture, and when I mean say diet culture, it's this obsession our society has with diets and thinness, and that if you eat a certain way, you're a better person, and if you eat a different way, you're not as good. So when we say challenge the food police, we want to look at these rules. What are the food rules that you have, and where do they come from? what happens if you break these rules? So if my rule is I can't eat after 6 o'clock, well, what if I got stuck in traffic trying to get home, and by the time dinner was out of the oven, it was 6:05? Does that mean I don't get to have dinner? So where do these rules come from? And the last one is really, do they serve you? And that's where that plate piece, or maybe some, guidelines and preferences are okay. So a guideline I like to have is to try and have protein with meals because it keeps me full. And so I ask myself, what happens if I break this rule? Well, I'm hungry sooner, so I have to have a snack before my next meal. So it's not a restrictive rule, it's really just a guideline. So for me, that does serve me. Does that that one can be a tricky one for people to grasp. So please feel free to shoot off some questions about that if necessary.
Could you maybe give us another example of the serve type of rule, or maybe maybe in the mindset of someone who's very busy, bunch of kids running around, managing a business? Is there a suggested rule that would help an entrepreneur take a balance on food and things like that?
Right. So if we think about like maybe meal planning, great concept, wonderful. And if you have the time to do the meal planning, it does help you with the rest of your week if you have a really busy lifestyle. I have 2 small kids at home. My husband works from home. I've been working on a presentation for the Chamber of Commerce and Physio. So I feel like real life happens, and then sometimes it's convenience foods, and we consume it and we realize that, nutritionally it wasn't the most balanced meal, but we all ate and we needed to, and we don't feel guilt about it. So if there are times when maybe meal planning doesn't work, or you don't have all the colors of the food guide on your plate, that happens. That's real life. And one meal is not going to make or break your health. But if it's also that this encompasses gentle nutrition. So we know that, fruits and vegetables and whole grains and lean proteins are all important parts of our diet, and we want to encourage those. But also being aware of reality, and that worrying about food is also not healthy for us, that stress. Does that make sense, or did I go on a different
I think that's a great one. And I struggle with that myself, even with no kids. So I'm only imagining what my life's going to be like in the future. I think that's a great example. Would you like me to go on to the next slide?
Sure thing. Okay, so discover the satisfaction factor. So I just want to take a second to be a nerd and really quote a study. There's a study in the 90s Paul Rosen did with 4 countries, America, France, Belgium, and Japan. And it looked at the amount of worry we had about how food affected our health and how much we enjoyed our food. And in terms of that, how it actually did affect our health. So when we looked at that, the Americans were worried the most about food and enjoyed food the least, and they were the least healthy of the study. The French worried the least about food and enjoyed it the most, and they were the most healthy, especially in terms of heart disease. So it really started to look at, when we think about what's actually the problem, is maybe is it actually worrying about the food? How does that affect our health? All that stress and how it affects our cortisol levels and all that piece was really what he started to look into. I thought it was very interesting. So I just wanted to add that in there. So when we're thinking about how satisfying your food is, I want you to really ask yourself some questions. So what makes my meal or food satisfying? And there are some examples there, being able to be mindful when you eat it, the taste, the texture, the aroma, those are all very personal. So only you can answer those questions. And what decreases satisfaction? And this one is, so many of us are doing it all the time: distracted eating, multitasking. We're texting or on social media, or now that so many are working from home, we just are kind of mindlessly grazing throughout the day while we try and get all of our work and tasks, or homeschooling, or whatever you might be doing. So this is really one of those pieces, again, where if you're going to eat some foods that maybe you wouldn't have allowed yourself to eat before, do it in a way that's very satisfying. So sit down and consume it without distraction, or at least part of it without distraction. Ask your body, ask yourself, how does this food taste, and how does my body feel when I eat it? Intuitive eating is not, I can eat all the unhealthy foods all the time, all the foods that I wouldn't have allowed myself to eat all day, constantly. It's that when you have it, you'll enjoy it and you'll move forward. And the next principle, feeling your fullness, super important as well when we talk about adding in that there are really no foods that are off limits. How many of us were taught you have to clean your plate, or when you start that new diet, you eat as much as you can, or you have a so-called cheat day on your diet, you just eat an inordinate amount. When you listen to your fullness, that's going to help you to have a more balanced when you're eating all of the different foods. And this one really goes back to that hunger fullness pendulum. So if I start eating at a 1, I'm probably going to eat until I'm an 8 or a 9. So overeating actually comes from restriction and rules. If I start eating when I'm at a 3 or a 4, so just starting to feel hungry, I'm probably going to stop when I'm a 6 or a 7, so mild fullness to full. And I think this is also really important, that being full, just like we talked about, what is hunger, what is fullness? Fullness is not that my stomach's distended, I feel like I'm going to be sick, I have to undo a button on my pants. It's that absence of hunger that we're going to be aware of. And this is where checking in mid-meal might be helpful. Not that you have to have that smaller plate, but that could be a way to help remind yourself to check in. Am I still hungry? Am I full yet? There are exceptions to this. So extreme stress and illness, eating disorders, mood disorders, some extreme exercise, your hunger and satiety cues might be off, and feeling this fullness might not be, you might not be able to do that right away. So we can work together on looking at what foods feel good and sustain you. So that's a piece where we're working with someone who's experienced in intuitive eating is really helpful.
Quick question for you, Erin.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, let's say, being at a 0 or a 1, I've often heard people advising to take a glass of water before really diving into a meal if you're super, super hungry, or you think you're super, super hungry, to determine if you're actually as hungry as you think you are. Would you agree with something like that, or not so much?
So if you are actually hungry, you should eat. You may want to do that, oh, I'm super, super hungry, so I know I probably should check in midway, because at this point, I'm likely to overeat because I'm going to eat so quickly. I'm probably going to eat like from the box of crackers rather than pulling a couple out with some cheese, right? So it can be that piece of doing the check-in midpoint.
The checking in point, would that be a mechanism or a guideline to help you eat slower? Because I know for me, like yesterday, I didn't eat until 4 or 5 o'clock just because I was so busy and I didn't prepare anything in advance, and I was here, there, and everywhere. I don't think I overate, but I know that's definitely not a healthy guideline or way to live my life. And I'm sure most entrepreneurs and people in the group have had situations like that. So in terms of checking in, can you give us ways that we should be checking in? Should we set timers? Is it after a certain number of bites? What's your suggestion for checking in?
That was my question too.
Yeah. That's going to be so personal, right? So for me, if I put food on my plate and I would typically consume all of it was a meal the size I would typically have. If I'm getting close to that being finished, that's when I might go, do I really need more, or is this okay? If I'm eating from a package, that's when it's a harder one to tell. Am I really full? So I think if you're someone who's eating really fast, is a timer really going to be helpful? So maybe it's, I'm going to have 4 bites and just give myself a second and feel that, okay, the pangs are gone away, or I'm not feeling dizzy anymore, or whatever kind of extreme hunger pain you were having. And then you can slow down and feel it. Another piece might just be to work on that mindful eating at that moment. So be present for that meal. Take away a screen. I know everyone's busy right now, and I'm sure, especially last weekend when everyone's trying to get as much as they could done before lockdown started, there were probably screens and emails and everything happening all at the same time. But when you're really, really hungry and you know you're going to eat quickly, working on that mindfulness and presence. So tasting your food, chewing it, actually, really important piece. And just really being present for that meal, I think is the best piece, rather than setting a timer or 4 bites or whatever it might be.
That's fair. It's more just adopting these principles into our lifestyle as opposed to setting more rules. I like where you're going with this. Would you like to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Can I add something there, or ask a question? So a rule that my husband and I have, we try to not to eat until we feel full, because we find if we eat until we feel full, then we kind of overate. I don't know if it makes any sense. So even if sometimes you feel you are eating, especially if you're hungry, we are eating and we finished our plate, like you were saying, and you feel like eating more and you don't feel full at that point in time. But if I eat a little bit more, then I'm going to be, stuffed. So I think that makes any sense.
No, that makes total sense. And I would change that question from am I full to am I still hungry? Because we get that signal mixed up. We're not attuned with our body, right? So our feeling full, like you said, is stuffed. And you don't want to feel stuffed. What you want to feel is the absence of hunger. So I think that's a really great point, is you've started actually identifying there's a difference between what you call full and what you call no longer hungry. And I think that's a wonderful guideline. And if you overate and got to that stuffed point, you did it. It's okay. Go back next time to your regular healthy comfort, right?
Great question.
So we'll move on to the next slide, and that's coping with your emotions with kindness. I'm cognizant of time here, but the questions are really great. Coping with your emotions with kindness. So I think this is where we look at intuitive eating, as well as not eating all day, all the time. We're eating for when we're hungry. So if you are eating and you're not hungry, I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. One would be what am I feeling right now? So this is a children's image, but it's really helpful. So there's a little guy there with a sign that says sad. So I want you to label your feelings. So am I eating because I'm hungry, or am I eating because I'm exhausted, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm stressed, or I'm sad, or I'm celebrating, which sometimes is fine as well. And then, so once you've identified why you are eating, what you're feeling right now, the next question is really, what do I need? Because food is probably not going to fix that. So if I'm actually really tired, maybe what I need to do is step away from my screen and take a little rest. Or if what I'm feeling, is sadness, maybe I need some self-care, or maybe I need to stress, I'm needing some boundaries. So looking at what you need rather than just turning to food right away. And it's a really challenging one. And this is really key for this season. I'm going to use season in a really broad term because right now there's so much stress with the holidays. And stress for the holidays can be things are busy, but also not everyone is joyful and happy during the holidays. It can be a very challenging time for people in years where we're not in a pandemic. Then you add this pandemic on and people are challenged. They're not with their families. They're not sure how they're going to make this season work. Also the season of pandemic, this is super stressful. And then add in winter and you get this, seasonal affective disorder that so many people can have, and, all the darkness and whatnot. So this piece is really important for this seasons talk, because when I first heard this talk, I was like, are we talking about season, like holiday season or season of the year? And this piece I think is really important to be aware of, that emotional eating is often a big piece of our food relationship that we need to work on. All right, my favorite slide of the whole presentation, respect your body. So remember that you are not a body. You have a body, but it does not reflect your accomplishments or your self-worth. All bodies deserve dignity and respect, including proper health care, and that includes from society and from ourselves. The size of our body does not tell us the health of our body. So the size of my body does not tell me my cholesterol levels. It does not tell me my blood pressure. It does not tell me my blood sugar. My medical tests tell me that. Also, a larger body does not mean a person is unfit. So I'm going to let you look at this lovely woman here who's running. Her name is Latoya Shanti, and she is an ultra marathon runner. Her last race run that she did was 100 kilometers. It's ridiculous. And she really came into the media in 2017. She was running the New York City Marathon. And there was someone observing the race who fat shamed her at kilometer 34 of this marathon. The marathon's 42 kilometers. She had made it to kilometer 34 and someone decides to comment on her body. So I just want you to know that the size of someone's body does not reflect how fit they are. And your body does amazing things regardless of its size. The bottom two here are really important pieces. So give yourself time and grace to respect your body. A lot of our body image issues, I don't know if I like that word, but thoughts started very early. Think about in your childhood, do you ever remember a parent figure or an aunt or someone in your life commenting on how they were unhappy with their body? You've been probably hearing these messages from a very young age. Or maybe people commented on your body from a very young age. So it is going to take time for you to start to respect your body. You don't have to love every piece of your body all the time, but you do have to respect it. It does amazing things. I was on one of my intuitive eating Instagram pages, and they posted a meme. If your mom had a BMI of 23 instead of 32, would you have loved her more? Like, no, body size is not equate to how much we love someone or how well someone can do. But weight stigma is systematic, and that's also going to be a big challenge. It's media, it's diet culture. It's going to take a long time to chip away at that as well. Movement, not exercising because you ate sweets or because I'm going to have a cocktail for the holidays. You're not exercising a specific type of exercise because it burns the most calories. I want you to think about exercise as how it makes you feel both during and after the workout. Does it help you to feel energized? Do you sleep better? Do you really enjoy a challenge? Do you enjoy the sport of it? So think about those things, not moving to lose weight or to make your body look a certain way. And then the last one, this is a quote from Evelyn Tremblay from her book, Intuitive Eating. It says, sorry, she wrote the book Intuitive Eating. This is not from the book. She says, enjoy eating food, and not too much, not too little, and mostly what satisfies you. So it's all about balance here. And this one is the last principle for a very important reason. If it was at the top, people would start working on that one first, and it needs to be at the bottom because you need to make the peace with food. You need to learn about your hunger and satiety. You need to break down those rules first before you start looking at gentle nutrition. Like, we should eat fruits and vegetables. Whole grains are good for us. Lean proteins are important. Healthy fats do benefit our body. So we're not saying you shouldn't eat healthy foods, but it's about making sure that it's balanced and gentle. So here are my quick and dirty ways to add intuitive eating into real life, especially during the holidays. So don't skip meals just because you're going to have the big holiday dinner. You're going to pendulum. You're going to go.
I do that every year, Erin. I'm going to write this down, highlight it, and circle it. So thank you for making that the first one.
Me too, Robin.
Alarm in your phone on Christmas Day to eat lunch. Like, just eat something, something that's going to nourish your body, make you, have energy to get through the rest of the day. But also enjoy your celebratory foods. So don't restrict, don't tell yourself you can't have those. That's a really important part of our life and our enjoyment, but also honor your fullness. You don't have to eat 4 plates of it. Now, Tupperware is wonderful, or takeaway containers are great. You don't have to eat it all at once. And if you're really, really full, you're not going to enjoy it as much as if you felt comfortable consuming it. Don't starve yourself the following day because of guilt. I overate, so now I can't eat breakfast or lunch. It doesn't work that way. You enjoyed it. It was wonderful. Maybe you didn't stop at that I'm no longer hungry, and you did get to a bit of the stuffed part. But yesterday was yesterday, and today we're moving forward. So if you feel hungry, feed yourself. Don't exercise to burn off those cocktails or cookies. Move your bodies in ways that feel good. Get out and have a walk, or do some gentle yoga, or maybe you do like to lift some weights in your home now that gyms are not an option. But move your body in a way that you enjoy. It will actually be enjoyable for you. And instead of stress eating, ask yourself, what do I need? And give yourself that. So here are some great references. All wonderful dietitians with great information about intuitive eating. And I have about 5 minutes before I have to go nurse a baby. So
I do have one quick question from the group for you, Erin. What are your thoughts on different types of diets in terms of intermittent fasting or keto? And I know the diet term is something we don't want to use, but that type of lifestyle. I know a lot of people are adopting the intermittent lifestyle where they won't eat until 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 o'clock, or low carb, high protein, all of those things. Do you have any suggestions for anyone with those types of, again, I don't know what another word to use other than diet, but it's something that people might adopt?
I'm going to go right to the, does this rule serve you? So if intermittent fasting means you can no longer feel your hunger cues, or it means at your first meal, your fast breaking meal, that you can't control your eating or eat it in a mindful manner, then I don't think it's serving you. If eating higher fat, higher protein makes you feel good, then that's fine. But having a rule saying you're not allowed to have whole grains or you're not allowed to have fruit doesn't seem like a lifestyle that encompasses whole health nutrition.
Fair.
So ask yourself if those are serving you. If those guidelines or preferences feel good to you and you have a healthy relationship with food, and if you do have a cookie, you can have one and you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have another cookie again, so I have to eat the whole dozen that I baked, then maybe that works for you. But that restriction tends to reinforce those food rules, and then we have those good and bad foods, and we don't have that peace with food at that point.
That's a great answer, and I think that resonates well with a lot of people. We have one last question before we let everybody go today. And the question is, are you a fan of 3 meals a day or 5 smaller meals throughout the day?
Personally, that's a personal question. Health-wise, if we're looking at intuitive eating, if you're hungry 5 times a day and you have the space to eat 5 times a day, then great, if that works for you. If you're a busy entrepreneur and trying to make 5 times to eat in a day is going to stress you out and make you lose your attunement with your body, then maybe that's not the right choice for you. So I like to set myself up to try and eat 3 meals. And if I get hungry in between, I have some snacks. But some people find that they need to eat more frequently. It really depends on you, and it depends on your health as well. So do I exercise, often throughout the day? For me, I'm a nursing mom, so I eat a lot. That's a really different thing to be aware of. Are there certain medications that I'm taking that I need to maybe think about how that affects those medications or how I feel? I think it's a personal question, and either can be fine.
Wonderful. Well, I really want to send a big thank you to you, Erin. For everybody on the call, Erin is currently on maternity leave, but works at Out of the Woods Wellness Center here in Aurora. It's over on Industrial Parkway. The website is below, www.outofthewoodswellness.com. And Erin's email specifically is erin@outofthewoodswellness.com. Again, Erin, thank you so much for taking the time to put this together. I know, like you said, you're breastfeeding, you're a busy mom of 2 beautiful kids. And I just want to wish everybody on the call today a safe and happy holiday. And again, we will be sending a link for a recording of this presentation, as well as Erin's contact information, should anybody have any further questions. And again, we wish you all a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season.
Thanks, Robin. And I just want to reiterate, thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And Robin and Honsberger, thank you again for sponsoring our health and wellness series. Our next one, if everybody wants to mark it in their calendar, will be held on Thursday, February. I can't believe I'm saying February. February the 4th, and it will focus on mental health. So again, we wish everybody a very happy holiday. Stay well, stay healthy, and we hope to see everyone soon. If everybody is free on Thursday, the Aurora Chamber is doing a very, a quick little holiday drive-by, bringing some cheer to our members. Come by for some hot chocolate, some treats. We're going to be doing the drive-by at the Legion on Industrial Parkway North between 11:30 and 2. So if you're around, drive by and see us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Thanks again, Erin. Stay safe.
Thanks, Robin.